Hmm. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Now we are from group 5. We will presentation about the shaping the AU from internal market to sectoral policy. So for the first, I will introduce myself. My name is Fadia Kolbenia Balafif. Lutfi.
And my name is Lutfi Indisa Putri.
My name is Muhammad Ara Gibran.
My name is Fauzan Farudin.
So for the first, we will presentation from the area, please.
Um, Introduction to international policy. The EU international policy cover four main area: the internal market, macroeconomic and financial policy, functional policy, and sectoral policy. The main focus of this policy is to improve economic efficiency, create jobs, and promote growth. The European Union con- aims to create an economically integrated area where trade barriers and other restrictions are removed to support common welfare. Scope of international market policy. Main objective of the internal market: to create a single market without internal barriers, meaning that goods, service, people, and capital can move freely among member states. With an integrated market, the EU aims to boost economic growth and expand employment in the region. Four key pillars of the internal market is common custom tariff, which is this policy sets uniform external tariff for EU member states, and the goal is to ensure fair international trade without tariff competition among member states. The second one is free movement. The four freedoms guaranteed are the movement of goods, service, people, and capital. This promote deeper economic integration among member states. Then number three, legal harmonization. This policy ensures that laws and regulation across the EU supports market integration, and for example, product standards and consumer protection are consistent across all member states. Number four, competition policy. Prevent anti-competitive practice such as monopolies or abuse of dominant market position, which is limit states aid that could harm competition. Next. Barrier and challenge in the internal market. Number one is history and culture. Different in tradition, language, and historical experience slow down integration in some sector. This often leads countries to prefer pro- protectionist approaches rather than opening their market. National protectionism is some member states are hesitant to open strategic sectors such as energy, transport, or communication for a national interest reason. Three, weak implementation. Internal market policies are sometimes not implemented optimally by national bodies, creating additional barriers. Uh, the key challenge is number one is legal harmonization is often seen as reducing national flexibility, causing some countries to hesitate in agreeing to such measures. Number two is technical and regulatory barriers still exist in various sectors, hindering full integration, success and next step. Which is achievement. The key success is number one is the EU has successfully removed major barriers such as internal market has also strengthened competition and economic integration in the region. Okay, that's all.
Okay, and then in this part, I would like to explain about macroeconomics and financial policies. First, the background and objectives of EMU. The background of EMU, the initial intentions in 19 the initial intentions was starting in 1969 and 1972. The European Union leaders plan to establish an economic and monetary union, or this EMU, by 1980, but the implementation was slow. And then in 1979, their European Monetary System, or EMS, launched to strengthen the monetary policy with some point, a common reserve fund for market stabilization, European currency unit as a medium of exchange and reserve, in rate, and exchange rate mechanism to maintain exchange rate stability. So the benefit of EMU, uh, there are some benefit, like political benefits and economic benefits. From political benefits is bringing the European Union closer to full integrations, and to economic benefits, is for monetary stability, eliminations of foreign exchange, and encouraging investment. And next slide, please. And then the challenge and the future of EMU. First, I would like to explain the crisis and challenges. Uh, there are any crisis happen in Europe, like financial crisis, in around 200, 2008 until 2009. The crisis exposed the weakness of EMU's design, which focused too much on monetary without sufficient economic support. And countries like Greece and Spain had to ask for financial assistance, triggering long and controversial negotiations. So the reformation during the crisis, European Stability Mechanism provided loans to member states experiencing economic difficulties, and for bank union, strengthened the banking system through centralized supervision and deposit protections. And another from crisis, there are also challenges which are ongoing now. Like first, the low labor mobility, like language, cultural, and local attachment barriers, hinder labor movement. And then limited fiscal transfer, like, which means there is no strong mechanism to help countries with weak economies. Then political tensions, like the ideological differences between pro-intervention and non-intervention countries. often trigger conflicts. And then economic inequality. The imbalance in economic performance between countries is still significant. And as we know that in Europe is there are still many weak countries, weak economic countries, and not all of them are strong economic. And then the last challenges is international competition. The euro has not been able to compete with the US dollar or a major global currency. And then the future of EMU, the reforms that needed for this economic Europe is to strengthen the leadership, economic equality among members, and deeper fiscal integrations. And symbolic potential, the euro could become a symbol of European integration, but there are still barriers to solidarity between member of state. That's all from me.
So I will explain about the functional policy. The scope of functional policy, the first is area of freedom, security, and justice. This policy area ensures the security and freedom of U.S. citizens while managing cross-border issues like immigration, crime, and asylum. The key focus area from this policy is immigration and border control, like ensuring orderly migration and secure borders while upholding human rights. And the second is asylum policy, that's providing protection to refugees and addressing the shared responsibility among member states. And the last is cross-border crime, the taking organized crime, terrorism, and human trafficking. The key institution that AU did is Europol, Eurojust, and Frontex. The strengthening mechanism that can agreement allow the free movement of people across member states, fostering integration but also necessitating robust border and secure management. And the second is social cohesion policy. This policy aims to reduce disparities between regions and ensure balanced development across the AU. The primary objective that's promote economic and social integration, foster labor mobility to address regional unemployment and skill gaps. The key tool that is European Social Fund, like they did the super job creation, worker force training, and also skill development. And also they did the cohesion fund that is provided financial assistance to less developed regions for infrastructure and environmental projects. The outcome from this policy is improve opportunities for the citizen, reduce inequality, and also enhance regional competitiveness. And the next is the policy, the energy and environmental policy. This policy address the climate change, promote sustainability, resource use, and transitional AU toward renewable energy. The focus area is about the carbon emission reduction. That's like the meeting global commitment to combat climate change like Paris Agreement. And the next is energy efficiency and current innovation to reduce energy consumption in homes, business, and transportation. And the last is resource protection, ensuring sustainability use of natural resource to maintain ecological balance. The strategy is the transition transitioning to renewable energy sources such as wind and solar to reduce reliance on fossil fuels and secure long-term sustainability. And the last is research and innovational policy. This policy strengthens the AU global position by advancing science and technology. And the focus in 2020, in Horizon, one of the world's largest research and innovation program, provides funding to support first the cutting edge research, the second is technological innovation, and the third is collaboration between academy and industry. The goal of this policy is maintain global competitiveness by leading in areas like artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and renewable energy. So the key point of functional policy is the first in intergovernmental cooperation, like cooperation among AU states to address shared challenges efficiency, like the immigration or organized crime, targeted funding, allocating the resource to region that sector that need them most. And the next is sustainability, prioritizing environmental protection while fostering economic growth. And also the last is global leadership, establishing the AU as a global leader in addressing climate change, innovation, and social equality. That's all from me. Thank you. So the next is Fauzan, please. Fauzan, please your mic.
So, some European policies are directed towards specific economic sectors. A few such policies covering coal and steel, atomic energy, agriculture, and transport were explicitly provided for in the founding treaties. Others have their origins in a combination of factors, including difficulties in adjusting to change market conditions, rapid sectoral decline, and effective political lobbying by interest parties. The most obvious example of a sectoral policy is the CAP, which consumes around two-fifths of European budgetary expenditure and where most major policy making responsibilities have been transferred from the member state of the European Union to of the European Union other sectoral policy cover fishing and shipbuilding. So if you talk about common fisheries policy, the CVP has many problems. After years of discussion and the periodic issuing of laws regulating aspects of the industry, legally applicable common fisheries policy was agreed in 1983. Fishing is an example of a policy that's marginal for many states, but that extremely important to some. The essential rationale of the CVP is to ensure that fish stock are exploit responsi- responsibly with to care for the marine ecosystem and with the interest of fishermen and consumer protected as far as possible. The CFP problems caused by of two interrelated reasons. On the one hand, there is an over capacity which leads to overfishing, which in turn results deplete. And in some cases, integrate fish stocks. On the other hand, there are difficulties of fisheries minister, some of whom are subject to intense pressure from their domestic fishing industries to maximize their permissible catch, to be able to make scientifically based decision on who can catch that and when. It's not for the existence of the CFP and the restrictions on fishing that it involves to non-member of European Union, uh, Norway and Iceland would in all probability have become Europe Union member. Uh, so now we will discuss about shipbuilding. So, rather like fisheries, shipbuilding central problem has been overcapacity, but whereas with fisheries, the overcapacity has been created by insufficient fish stocks. With shipbuilding, it has been caused being insufficiently competitive on world markets. This lack of uh, competitiveness has arisen essentially from two factors. On the one hand, use of state aid by Europe governments to national shipbuilders so as to keep them in business. On the other hand, very low price being charged by competitors, especially in China, Japan, and Korea, which build around 18% of the world seagoing vessels. The rules are now comparable to those for other industries, with A being permissible for some modernization and restructuring and restructuring activities, but largely prohibited for contract-related operating aid. However, although international agreements have been made aimed to eliminate all exciting measures or practice constituting obstacle to normal competitive conditions that have been problems with their full application. Okay. Next. So this chapter has shown the very wide range of the European Union domestic policy involvement, has also shown that the ex extent and the nature the involvement vary considerably between policy areas. Two factors are particularly important in explaining this very extent and nature. The first, in the relationship of policies to the operation of market. The European Union is heavily involved in setting standards for marketed products and practice, applying, laying down, applying, applying competition rules and promoting measures that will increase market efficiency, but is much less involved in areas such as criminal law and road safety. The second factor is cost. The European Union does not have a large budget. There is, of course, an element of cost as well as effect here. So, cost of the European Union not having a large budget is that the traditional areas of high public expenditure, such as social welfare, education, and health, are generally seen as being naturally national policies and not candidates for being much development at European Union level based on European regulates, guides, encourage this next.
So the last is the conclusion, the summary that the EU actively shaped domestic policy, prioritizing market efficiency, economic integration, and sustainability. Its influence varies by policy area with limited involvement in welfare and education due to budget constraints. The recommendation that we get from all of this explanation that we learned from the book. That is, the first is strengthen the collaboration to address technically and political challenges. The second is implement reform to enhance resilience of economic and monetary union or AMU and increase investment to sustainability and innovation for global competitiveness. And the last is promote social cohesion by reducing regional disparities and supporting labor mobility. So that's all from us. Thank you to the audience that look our video now. Thank you. And for all of the member, please open your mic. So, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.